Hi everybody, Cindy here. Welcome to Resize Bite. Today I'm going to show you how to make breadcrumbs without the regular pork rinds or Parmesan cheese that is standard for low carb cooking these days. No pork rinds, no Parmesan cheese, even though those are fabulous and do go well with these breadcrumbs. But today, just to stay lower carb, lower calorie, I have found a way to make breadcrumbs. And let me show you. So one day, I was cleaning out my fridge and I found stale Joseph's lavash bread. This is a low carb bread. Per flatbread, it's 120 calories, 15 carbohydrates per lavash sheet, which is about this big. Let me show you how I do it. If you have stale breadcrumbs and want to use those, that's fine. But if you need them now, what I do is I either put them in the air fryer, and these are some that I have toasted up in the air fryer. So you're gonna do 175 to 170 degrees for 20 minutes, and you watch them so they don't burn. I normally weigh them down with something that you can put in the oven, like a little ramekin or something. Weigh them down for those 20 minutes. Otherwise, they'll curve on you, which is not a big deal, but you could still use them. Now these are some that I've dried, just letting them stay out overnight. Leave them in a cool, dark, dry place, and they take about a day to dry out. So you can go ahead and use that. Now 4 pieces is equal to 1 lavash bread. So I'm gonna use those today, and I will show you how I grind them up and make them into breadcrumbs. I used a food processor to grind up my breadcrumbs. Just toss them in there, break them up like this. This is why I cut the lavash bread into 4 pieces. It just makes it easier to kind of get into the food processor. But if you don't have a food processor, you can always put them into a bag and roll your rolling pin over them as much as possible to get them into breadcrumb consistency. But I find that the food processor is much better and faster. So let me go ahead and do that. You will need to use the chop setting on the food processor, and then I go into puree to get a finer grain. I'm gonna pulse it until you see this consistency. It's just exactly like the breadcrumb that we used to buy when we were eating high carb bread. So just take out your breadcrumbs. So I have just grounded 1 lavash bread. It's about half a cup of breadcrumbs, a little over after you add the spices, and I'll show you what spices I use. So I'm gonna use a little bit of onion powder, about half a teaspoon of onion powder, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, about half a teaspoon of oregano, but sometimes I use a little bit more because I love this stuff. I'm gonna use a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, everyday seasoning, about half a teaspoon of dry basil, a little pepper, and about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now my chicken is already salted. Now it really looks like breadcrumbs. So if you take into account that there's only about 16 carbs, leave 12 net carbs. I'll correct that if I'm wrong. So this batch here will cover about one breast of chicken. I'll show you how I make my chicken now. I have preheated my pan. I have my eggs. I have my breadcrumbs. Just gonna put the oil in there. My chicken is seasoned with salt and pepper. So I'm just gonna put it in here. Sometimes I double dip it into the breadcrumbs depending on how much breadcrumbs I want. But they do come out very crispy. Now I have made chicken drumsticks with the skin on with these breadcrumbs, and they came out so fantastic, so juicy in the air fryer. You can make these breadcrumbs and put them in an airtight container or Ziploc bag and leave them in your fridge for a week or so. I would recommend the airtight container. It'll keep it more crunchy. Also, you can go ahead and use the breadcrumbs immediately to coat your chicken or whatever, pork chops, and put them in the freezer. That's best. And then use it or fry it up, put it in the oven or air fryer. See the color? It's just fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and finish frying these, and I'll show you how they came out. This is what remains of the breadcrumbs. I've coated 10 pieces, and it's a little bit, well, it's a lot over one piece of chicken breast, and it also depends on how you cut your chicken. But yeah, this is fantastic. If you calculate how many carbs you're eating in this, it's not much in comparison to using Parmesan, pork rinds, and or regular breadcrumbs. These chicken tenders came out so yummy and crispy. I can't wait to taste them. This is a must try. I mean, can't wait to finish my dinner. But you can bread almost anything with this and not worry so much about the high carbs. It tastes so good. You definitely have to try. Thanks for watching. Follow me on Instagram at ResizeBite and tag me if you make these breadcrumbs. I have to go. It's dinner time.
I want everybody to dance. I'm just like I said. And when I say hold yourself, I want all of you get ready to stop.